Hey you guys, it's Peter, and I'm back. Of course I'm back. I'm not going anywhere. Boost! Peekaboo, I see you because I'm YouTube famous now. Available summer 2021. Oh, it's 2023. The album, Dad, Country Divas Show Tunes, AF, Shimmy Shimmy. Here you come again, looking better than a body has the right to. Boost! How are you guys doing today? Listen, Linda, listen. I am having such a fantastic day. It is 85 degrees in Indianapolis. I've been sitting out on my front porch and I've been drinking my iced coffee and talking to my neighbors and just having a wonderful day. When you live in the Midwest, it's what you do. You sit on your front porch and you're neighborly. And I'm neighborly and I'm a good citizen and I'm a good Christian. She's not a Christian, no! Yes, we're going to talk about Tati. No, Tati, no! Boost! We're going to talk about Hot Tati today. We're going to talk about James Charles, and we're going to talk about Jeffree Star. Jeffree Star, he's a little bored lately. He's a little bored, and he's needing to stir up some drama. So he went on this podcast and basically blamed everybody in the world for the failure of the beauty community and the demise and the ruining of the beauty community. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, do y'all remember... Maybe not. When you're as old as me, you have faint memories of like kindergarten and first grade. But do you remember being in kindergarten and you all sit in a circle and you play that game and it was called Who Stole the Cookie from the Cookie Jar? And then somebody would say like, Tati stole the cookie from the cookie jar. And then Tati would go, who, me? Couldn't be. Yes, you. No, then who? James stole the cookie from the cookie jar. Not me, sisters. Then who? Couldn't be, or something like that. Jeffree stole the Jeffree stole the cookies from the cookie jar. And that's the truth, okay? Let's just put it all out there. Let's start telling the truth. Let's remind people of how it all went down back in the day. Jeffree Star was a major player in the ruining of the beauty community. He can say whatever he wants to say. He can blame it on James, which James had a major part in it. He can blame it on Tati. Tati had a major part in it. Shane Dawson actually had a huge part in the ruining of the beauty community. And it's interesting to me that Jeffree is so slighted in his friendship with Shane Dawson, of which he apparently never talks to him or never sees him, which was very obvious in the last, I was going to call it a slideshow. The last series that Shane Dawson did with Jeffree Star, which was called 3 Days on My Ranch in Wyoming. Please, can we do another pallet because I need some money to pay for my wedding? That series, it's interesting to me that Jeffree Star doesn't remember what a huge player Shane Dawson was in basically the ruining of the beauty community. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today. So, what happened was, if you don't know what you don't know, my fan was backwards. If you don't know what you don't know is a lot. Jeffree Star recently came out on a podcast. Now, he's going on all these podcasts, which is interesting to me. He's like making the rounds of all these like small podcasts and stuff like that. And he did this podcast, and the woman that was like the podcaster, host, or whatever, she asked him something about like the James Charles and Tati Westbrook debacle and whatever, and Jeffree was like, yeah, they ruined the beauty community, okay? Well, a lot of people are going crazy about this and talking about how Jeffree is blaming James and Tati for the ruining of the beauty community, which is interesting because if you go back in time, I think it was like a year or two ago, Jeffree Star went on Logan Paul's podcast, and he basically said the exact same thing. I know this because I remember it, number one, but number two, because I have a good remember, see? I know Jeffree Star doesn't. And I said in my video the other day, I don't know if he smokes too much ganj, or if he eats too much yak meat, or if he drinks too many Red Bulls. I don't know what it is, but apparently he does not remember history the way that history happened. So Jeffree Star's thinker, his rememberer is not great anymore. So I'm going to remind him a little bit, okay? But Jeffree Star went on Logan Paul's podcast, and this was like a year or two ago, I think, and he basically said the exact same thing on there. He blamed it on Tati and James that they ruined the beauty community. He said almost the exact verbatim, almost the exact same thing, that James Charles and Tati ruined the beauty community, okay? Well, what is interesting to me about this is somebody that was there and covered it and talked about it at length at the time that it was going on. If you remember how this whole thing all went down, okay? This was during the filming of Shane Dawson's series, The Beautiful Life of Jeffree Star, okay? And he was supposedly filming the drama and everything behind the scenes. In fact, a lot of people speculated at the time, I think giving Shane Dawson way too much credit, that Shane Dawson was gonna do this huge series and it really wasn't gonna be about Jeffree Star. It was really gonna be about how the drama perpetuated the stories and all this kind of stuff, and Shane Dawson was kind of in the middle of all of that, right? And that Shane Dawson was going to talk about how the drama affected the sales and affected the beauty community and affected the beauty gurus and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people were talking about it at the time, right? Okay, so this was during the filming of all of that, Tati Westbrook put out this video, and in the video, she made allegations towards James Charles and inappropriate behaviors that James Charles had done that she witnessed, and most of it was at one of her birthday, or at her birthday party, and she talked about that on there, right? And that's where the clip about the, you know, all that kind of stuff comes up. That whenever I see that clip where Tati's talking about, you know, doing the BJs and stuff like that, I still, like, that clip cracks me up when I see it today. But anyway, so she comes out and she makes that video, okay? Well, then James Charles came out and he made, I think, 2 videos actually. And the first one was kind of addressing it, and then the second one that he came out was called No More Lies. And that was the one that he, like, left up, and the other one he took down. But anyway, and it was basically where he debunked all this kind of stuff. Well, what was interesting at that time was that Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson completely 100% backed Tati Westbrook, okay? And said that Tati was telling the truth and blah, 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 blah. In fact, if you remember at the time, and if you need a reminder, Dustin Daly today just put out an excellent video. It was highly researched. It was very well done. And it's called, like, The Ups and Downs of Jeffree Star, The Evolution of Jeffree Star, or something like that. It was fantastically done, okay? And so Dustin put that video out, and in there, it talks a lot about this. And if you go in there and you watch the video, because if you want to find the receipts or see the history, Dustin has included them in the video. One of the parts that he talks about in there is that Jeffree came out and he actually made a lot of allegations on Twitter and things like that on his Instagram story as well, saying things about James Charles. In fact, he came out and said that there were reasons why Nathan wouldn't allow James at his house and things like that. But he never, like, it was very ambiguous and vague, and he never went into detail about it. So Jeffree Star inserted himself into the middle of all of it and was a huge part of that as well, okay? Jeffree even, and Dustin also has this in his video, Jeffree also came out and said that because James came out and said some things about Jeffree Star in his video, that he came back and, you know, like, countered all of these allegations. And so Jeffree said, when somebody lies on you and they tell on you and all these kinds of things, you have to stand up for yourself, okay? But he never did. He never came out with that video. He even, in the clip, which you can see, like I said, on Dustin's video, he even comes out and he says, you know, like, I've got screenshots that I'm going to bring and I'm going to prove because I've got facts, right? Well, Jeffree never made that video. Jeffree never made any video proving any kind of facts, proving what he had. In fact, until this day, we do not have any factual evidence from Jeffree Star on what James Charles actually did behind the scenes that made the falling out. Now, I can tell you the drama channels know the truth and have heard certain things about what really went down behind the scenes. I mean, we've heard the truth about why Jeffree Star and Manny MUA are not friends anymore, and Nikita Dragon and Gabriel Zamora. I mean, we've heard the stories, okay? And we know what really went on behind the scenes. Now, Jeffree Star has gone on, like, Keemstar's Basement, and he has fed out, like, you know, that he has this voicemail that he played for them and whatever, which is very, for me, is like somebody that's almost like, you know, 40 years old to, like, get in and be like, let me play this, like, receipt for you. It's like, if you're either gonna come out with some evidence or you're not. Like, why not just come out and, like, say, especially after all this time, okay? And then he also, in the same interview, offered to James Charles to talk to him and, like, make up or whatever, which was ridiculous to me. But it's like, why would you not just, and I'm not saying, like, listen, I'm not one to defend James Charles. I think James Charles is a ridiculous fool that needs to take accountability for his actions, okay? But I don't understand why you wouldn't just come out at this point, if you've got all this stuff to say, and say that these people ruined the beauty community, and then feed out this voicemail note on Keemstar's Basement, and then say on Logan Paul's podcast that they ruined. Why wouldn't you just come out and share whatever facts you know? At this point, like, I mean, it's been enough time. Why wouldn't you do that, okay? Now, I do believe, now, supposedly behind the scenes, I don't know if there's any truth to this, but supposedly either legal or YouTube kind of stepped in and said, enough is enough, you guys, the fighting has to stop, blah, 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 whatever. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. What I do know is that Jeffree Star came out with a very lame video, basically taking responsibility for his own actions and all of that kind of stuff, right? Okay, and then to follow up with that, we then saw the Shane Dawson Twitter note that he put out, which was like, you know, to the beauty community, he's leaving the circus. He talked about James Charles needing to be served a piece of humble pie and all that kind of stuff. So to completely forget that Shane Dawson, who at that time, okay, that he put this all out there, that at that time had just sold the Conspiracy palette with Jeffree Star, which was like the highest grossing palette that had ever been sold in the beauty community. You know, they were selling out these Morphe stores. They couldn't get people in the mall. I mean, people were online for 5 hours and still couldn't buy these products. And so to completely say that Shane Dawson, who got ultimately canceled after all of this, had no part in the failure of the beauty community, when he went in to expose the beauty community and talk about it, is just very interesting to me that Jeffree Star, out of all of it, like out of all of the people that have been involved in the beauty community through the years, whether it's Manny and Laura, Gabriel, you know, Nikita Dragon, Nikki Tutorials, you know, on and on and on, Wayne Goss, you know, whoever you want to talk about, that it's just Tati and James over this one debacle that they ruined the beauty community. I just don't buy it, okay? I've watched it go down long enough. You know, I think like there are certain things that Jeffree Star forgets. And I have to tell you, like, I am a big believer that a huge part of why the beauty community doesn't exist, or people aren't interested in the OG beauty influencers anymore the way that they did, is COVID. I think that the pandemic is a huge issue why people aren't interested in it anymore. You know, I think a big issue is that people aren't spending as much money on makeup as they used to. Yes, some of them I do think they are, but the people that used to collect every single thing that Jeffree Star put out, I think that their money is funny these days, and they're not spending that kind of money on wanting to have every single mirror that Jeffree Star puts out, or whoever they collect, you know? And so I think that the pandemic really, really affected the money of the beauty community. I also think that a lot of people's interests shift, you know? And I think during that time, people started wanting to make their yards really nice, or redo their houses, or they found new passions. And TikTok came along as well, and TikTok started to thrive, which is why Jeffree Star, who's a complete opportunist, realized he's not getting the views on YouTube anymore, so he shifted it over to TikTok, because he has to be wherever it's relevant. It can't just be that people aren't that interested in Jeffree Star anymore. It's that he has to go where he thinks the views are, and he is doing very well on TikTok. He is, so congratulations to you over there on TikTok. I still think he should have stayed on YouTube as well for the people that like to watch his YouTube videos, because there's a lot of people that I don't love short form content. I don't love the 60-second to 3-minute videos. There's a few people out there that I watch, but other than that, I don't love those. Like, in all honesty, when I did watch Jeffree Star back in the day, I loved his 20-minute videos where he would do the Jeffree Star approved videos or, you know, talk about pieces of his life. Those were the things that were interesting to me. So to do it like a makeup change in like 30 seconds, like, I don't find that very interesting. But that's not just for Jeffree Star, that's for Michaela Nogueira, for any of these beauty influencers. I just don't find it that interesting anymore, you know? But for him to come out and completely blame it all on Tati Westbrook and James Charles, like, okay, this is the thing. I think we all know now the truth about James Charles. I mean, James Charles even came out, and I think his video was called Taking Accountability. He basically, well, he did in his video, took accountability. He also took the video down, okay? So he took accountability and basically owned up to a lot of what he had done, but then took the video down, basically saying, no, he hadn't done that, right? But we know now from the horse's mouth that James Charles is responsible for the things that were alleged against him, right? We know that, okay? But that really was the ruiner of James Charles' career. And then Tati Westbrook, I think, and I believe this, and I know that there are a lot of people out there that don't love Tati Westbrook and whatever, but I think Tati Westbrook got way in over her head, okay? I think she was just doing her thing. I think she had real issues with James Charles because I do think that at one point she really, really cared about James Charles as a friend, as a mentor. I think she really cared about James Charles. I think his behavior was very shocking to her because I think as somebody that was older, she hadn't really witnessed a lot of that kind of behavior from people, which I'm sure James hanging out with Manny and all these other kind of people, you know, like that's probably kind of just like who they are. I don't know. Like, you know, it's shocking to me, you know, like, I feel like a lot of them, there's just a lot of jokes that they make that I still to this day think are rather inappropriate or misleading that I don't think that are that funny. So but that's just me, right? And like, I don't know, maybe I would get along better with Tati than I would with them or something like that. But I think like in her talking to Shane and Jeffree about it, she was convinced to make this video. And yes, I do believe, and I don't care what they say, I do believe that she knew, or that they knew that she was gonna make this video. And the reason why is because I know, not from one person, not from two people, but from several people, and I was not on the inside of all of this, okay? But literally hours before Tati posted her video, there were other drama channels out there that knew that Tati was gonna post her video, and they did not hear it from Tati. Okay, so I found that out from other drama channels that called me like 5 minutes before she posted her video. Now, I will tell a little story, okay? At the time that this was all going on, Sam from Here for the Tea, who was a friend of mine at the time, she was doing a video exclusively about Tati. She and I were two that had no clue that this video was about to be posted, Tati's video about James Charles. We had no clue that it was coming out. We had no idea, right? I was contacted and I knew that Sam was getting ready to post a video. And there's a lot of people out there that know the story and they can back me and say, yes, it's 100% true. Peter did reach out to her and tell her. So she was going to make this video, or she had made this video and was getting ready to post it. I think she was getting it checked with legal or something like that about Tati Westbrook and Tati's involvement with a lot of this kind of stuff. But it was contradictory to what Tati was going to say in this video. I was contacted about 5 or 10 minutes before this video came out, and somebody told me and said, hey, Tati's releasing a video in 10 minutes. And I said, how do you know that? And they said, well, I was told several hours ago so that I could have my video ready when her video went live. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is special treatment. This is really interesting, right? Okay, and this is a lot of what people talked about back in the day. I could care less about this now. But I immediately reached out to Sam and I said, Sam, you can't post her video. And she was like, what are you talking about? I'll never forget. She was rolling through McDonald's. She was getting her poutine for the day. And I said, you can't post her video. You got to wait until Tati posts her video because you may need to edit whatever you said in your video. And she said, thank you. I really appreciate it because I would have looked like a fool had I posted this video, okay? And that was kind of how the whole thing went down. So for Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson to come out and say that they did not know that Tati was going to post her video is absolute 100% bullshit. They knew it. So for Jeffree Star 2 years later, okay, or 3 years, 4 years later or whatever, to come out and say that Tati Westbrook ruined the beauty community when he was an integral part of pushing her into whatever was going to happen, I do not believe that, allegedly, okay? I mean, I believe that he knew there had to have been conversations that were going on behind the scenes where he was saying to her, you've got to let people know what's going on with James Charles. You've got to tell them the truth. And I believe in my heart of hearts, okay? And I know that, like I said, that there are people out there that don't like Tati, but I think that Tati is pretty much on the up and up. I think she's a pretty good person. She's tried to stay out of drama the last couple years and just do her own thing. I think what happened was she felt so compelled, and I really believe that Tati didn't think she had any other options. I don't think she did it to be gossipy. I don't think she did it to, like, get a lot of, like, you know, whatever. I don't even think she did it because, you know, Shane had shouted out, you know, her palette and all that kind of stuff. I don't even think she did it because she felt like she owed anybody. I think she did it because she was so concerned about James Charles and she didn't think there was any other way to get him to stop. I really, truly believe that. You know, I've talked to Tati in the past, you know, and I really, truly believe her to be somebody that has a pretty good heart and soul. And I think that it was not a wise decision what she did. I think if I could go back in time and tell her not to make the video, I would say, girl, I don't think this is a wise choice. I think you're going to get a lot of backlash for this. But I think that what she did in that moment was she just didn't really feel like she had any other options, okay? Not to mention, she's got two people that she feels like has her back, Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson and whoever knows who else back there, saying, you got to let people know what's going on, okay? But you have to also remember, at that time, Jeffree Star's biggest competitor was James Charles. And I also want to tell you guys a story that is interesting, okay? That somebody was just asking me about this the other day. They were saying, you and Sam for Here for the Tea were supposed to be in a documentary series that James Charles was going to do. And this was before James Charles was problematic from, you know, doing all the allegations and things like that. He had reached out to Sam and I to do a documentary that he wanted to do. It was going to be like a 6 to 10 part series. And the whole series was going to be from beginning to end. Now tell me if this sounds familiar to you, okay? The whole series was going to be from beginning to end of him putting together his makeup palette that he did with Morphe. And he was going to show himself picking the colors and going to the labs and doing all this kind of stuff. That was going to be how it began, and that was going to be how it ended. But in there, he was going to also talk about different aspects of being a beauty influencer on YouTube. And one of those aspects was going to be drama channels and drama videos. And so he invited Sam and I out to LA. I mean, it was already booked and everything. We were supposed to do it. And he was going to like have us out there, and this was when he and Shane and Jeffree were still on good terms. He was going to have us out there, and then he was going to film, you know, like his videographer was going to film Sam and I meeting, and then we were going to sit down and we were going to interview him and ask him all these questions, and then the next day he was going to interview us and ask us questions about being a drama channel and covering this kind of stuff. What happened was, he went to Shane Dawson, allegedly, okay, this is just word of mouth from James Charles. He went to Shane Dawson and said that this was his idea. Shane Dawson said, why don't we get a lot of beauty influencers like Jeffree Star, Tati, you know, Manny, Laura, all these people, and we'll get them together, and then I will moderate it, okay? And then we'll have Peter and Sam on one side, and we'll have the beauty influencers on the other side. Well, for those of you that don't know, Sam and Jeffree Star didn't necessarily get along very well, okay? And I don't know if she would care that I'm sharing these stories, but I'm going to share them anyway because I think that they're pertinent. So she said to me on the phone, she said, I am not going to do this unless we have an ironclad contract, because if Jeffree Star comes for me and his people come for me, I will literally walk out of the room. Like, I'm not going to stand there and be made a fool when I have fact-checked this man for years on end. Like, I'm not going to sit there and be made a fool, and I'll walk out of the room. So that was what we told to James Charles. James Charles went back to Shane Dawson. Shane Dawson convinced, allegedly, like I said, this is all from James Charles' mouth that I heard. Shane Dawson told James Charles, I don't think that you should do the series. Like, I think the series isn't that, you know, it's not what you want it to be, and blah, 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 whatever. So James Charles didn't do the series. Who did the series? Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star. So for everybody out there that wants to talk about how Shane Dawson is the most creative person in the entire world, I can tell you that this idea from James Charles, because I was in a live stream, James Charles and his friend, I don't know, that guy that sings, they dipped into my live stream, and I said, we should do a documentary. And James Charles DM'd Sam and I immediately afterwards and was like, hey, can we talk? And we all got on a Zoom call and talked about this, and James Charles already had the idea for the documentary all set up. Like, he had all planned out. That was 6 months before Shane Dawson ever suggested that he was going to do this documentary with Jeffree Star, okay? So yet another example, and people want to know why I think that Shane Dawson is disingenuous and non-creative, because I think that he stole this idea from James Charles. So what you have to look at that time is that Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson were seriously threatened by James Charles, okay? And so then the allegations come in, and one way for Jeffree Star to get rid of James Charles and to make him look like a complete fool, and you have to remember when Tati came out with her video, James Charles lost 3 million subscribers overnight. And yes, he gained them back, but he lost 3 million subscribers literally overnight, okay? You think Jeffree Star was crying about that? Jeffree Star was not crying about that because his biggest competitor was gone, okay? And he knew that. And Jeffree Star is always somebody that cares about his competition. He wants to be #1 relevant always. So when you look back at this, and he is still out of his mouth saying, okay, this is also further evidence to me that Jeffree Star hasn't changed whatsoever. Like, he can't take any responsibility for the fact that he had a part in all of this, or played a part in all of this. That he wants to still sit there and say that James Charles and Tati Westbrook ruined the beauty community. And I'm not saying that they didn't, and I'm not saying that they didn't have a part in it, but I think it's for many, many reasons that the beauty community isn't the same that it was, is now that it was then. I think there's many reasons why, you know? Actually, I think that what he is accurate about is he came out in an Instagram story and he said, people are afraid to have fun. People are afraid to be sarcastic. People are afraid to make jokes. I do believe that if the beauty influencers, Manny, Laura, Tati, Jeffree, James, all these people were as shady boots down as they used to be and continued to shade each other, and we had the drama that we had, I think people would be more interested in it, because it was really like the Real Housewives of the beauty influencer community is really what it was like. It was like a reality show, and everybody was kind of interested in watching the reality show. So yes, I do agree with Jeffree on that part, that if people, like, and they're so afraid, like they don't want to be canceled, so they're so afraid of doing anything or saying anything that's going to bring attention to them. And Jeffree Star's really the only one that's doing it, and nobody really cares. So he gets away with making these comments of saying Tati and James ruined the beauty industry. Well, it's just not that simple. It's not just about this one moment in time, you know? Jaclyn Hill and Lipstickgate played a major factor in why the beauty industry is not the same way that it was back then. People started distrusting beauty influencers, you know? I mean, Jeffree Star was so, like, tone deaf in putting out the cremated palette during COVID, and a lot of people came for him. He didn't mention that. You know? And like I said, the pandemic with people not having money. There were so many things that happened. And I think people started distrusting the beauty influencers and all the products that they were pushing. And then it became saturated. You know, Jeffree Star used to be somebody that released a palette every 6 months. And then he was releasing a palette every 2 months. And it was like, who can keep up with all of that? So no, I don't believe it was just two people. But Tati Westbrook did come out in a video the other day, and she did clap back at Jeffree Star, and she made several comments in the video, and what she said was, apparently I'm to blame for ruining the beauty community or something like that, which I thought was very funny and very tongue-in-cheek, you know, that she can kind of like roll off and let it go and whatnot. So, you know, I don't think the beauty community will ever be what it was before. I think it was a unique moment in time. I was just telling somebody yesterday, I was like, I've got to start figuring out what I'm going to do on my channel. Nobody is interested in these fools anymore. But, you know, it was a unique period in time. I feel very blessed to have been a drama channel during that time. It was an exciting time. It was, you know, every day you would wake up and there would be something. I mean, you would wake up and there would be 2 or 3 new things that had happened overnight. You'd be like, oh my God, what's going on, you know? And it was fun to watch. And not all of it was devastatingly horrible, you know? And I think that was the thing. I think that's one of the biggest narratives that has been missed, is that it wasn't all horrible. Like, it was, a lot of it was tongue-in-cheek shade. A lot of it was funny. A lot of it was, you know, James Charles passing Jeffree Star passing James Charles, the numbers game, all that kind of stuff. It was exciting to watch that. And it really was kind of, to some degree, like watching a reality show, you know? So like I said, I don't think that, I felt firmly in my heart for a while that we were going to have new players. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think people are too afraid now to engage in drama. I think they're too afraid that it's going to ruin their career. I don't know that I necessarily believe that. You know, Michaela Nogueira is a good example of this. She constantly is getting herself involved in drama, and her channel just continues to thrive on TikTok, and she just continues to get sponsorships and brand trips and money and money, money, money. And so I don't think that it's going to hurt her. In fact, I would kind of like to see some of these people return to a little bit of the old shade and the old ways a little bit, you know? But like I said, I think they're too afraid. I think they're too afraid, and they've also become accustomed to how their careers are now, and it's like, well, I don't want to lose everything. And a lot of them did. Like Manny and Laura lost a lot, right? And so I think that at this point, they're like, well, I'd rather either accept it on a low end than risk everything and lose it. So, you know, I think one of the reasons why Jeffree Star doesn't feel uncomfortable coming out and making these kind of comments is because he knows it's not going to really affect his career long term anyway. Like, he's still going to financially do well on his cosmetics, which I don't think they're doing as well as they used to. I would actually really like to know the numbers of Jeffree Star's business, because I mean, he can't really sell out of anything anymore. So, you know, and I apparently that's because of James Charles and Tati Westbrook, you know. You're going to blame a $1 billion industry on 2 people and an incident that occurred over 3 or 4 years ago. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe take a look at your part in that just a little bit. Because the other part is that when you take a look at your part in something and then you can see the pattern of your ways, then you can fix that a little bit, and maybe you can be a little bit more successful in the future. And that would be my advice to Jeffree Star. If he were able to take a look and see what his part is in some of these things, then he would also realize that he is able to fix some of these things and maybe be a little bit more successful in the future. But he apparently is doing okay on his own, so he doesn't need my advice. Anyway, let me know what you think about all of that in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.